have your closest friend and associate to say something good about you. And Ralph Abernathy is the best friend that I have in the world. I'm delighted to see each of you here tonight in spite of a storm warning. You reveal that you are determined to go on anyhow. Something is happening in Memphis, something is happening in our world. And you know, if I was standing at the beginning of time with the possibility of taking a kind of general and panoramic view of the whole of human history up to now, and the Almighty said to me, Martin Luther King, which age would you like to live in? I would take my mental flight by Egypt. And I would watch God's children in their magnificent trek from the dark dungeons of Egypt through, or rather across the Red Sea, through the wilderness on toward the Promised Land. And in spite of its magnificence, I wouldn't stop there. I would move on by Greece and take my mind to Mount Olympus. And I would see Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, Euripides, and Aristophanes assemble around the Parthenon. And I would watch them around the Parthenon as they discussed the great and eternal issues of reality, but I wouldn't stop there. I would go on even to the great heyday of the Roman Empire. And I would see developments around there through various emperors and leaders, but I wouldn't stop there. I would even come up to the day of the Renaissance and get a quick picture of all that the Renaissance did for the cultural and aesthetic life of man, but I wouldn't stop there. I would even go by the way that the man for whom I'm named had his habitat. And I would watch Martin Luther as he tacked his 95 theses on the door at the Church of Wittenberg, but I wouldn't stop there. I would come on up even to 1863 and watch a vacillating president by the name of Abraham Lincoln finally come to the conclusion that he had to sign the Emancipation Proclamation, but I wouldn't stop there. I would even come up to the early 30s and see a man grappling with the problems of the bankruptcy of his nation. Come with an eloquent cry that we have nothing to fear but fear itself, but I wouldn't stop there. Strangely enough, I would turn to the Almighty and say, if you allow me to live just a few years in the second half of the 20th century, I will be happy. Now, that's a strange statement to make because the world is all messed up. The nation is sick. Trouble is in the land, confusion all around. That's a strange statement. But I know somehow that only when it is dark enough can you see the stars. And I see God working in this period of the 20th century in a way that men in some strange way are responding. Something is happening in our world. The masses of people are rising up, and wherever they are assembled today, whether they are in Johannesburg, South Africa, Nairobi, Kenya, Accra, Ghana, New York City, Atlanta, Georgia, Jackson, Mississippi, or Memphis, Tennessee, the cry is always the same: we want to be free.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. I hope you're having an incredible Monday. Of course, this is the holiday celebrating Martin Luther King MLK Day. I hope you guys didn't mind. I ran a little long because I wanted to play the beginning of that speech, because what we normally get with that, I've been to the mountaintop speech. What we normally get, brothers and sisters, is the end of it where he says, "I might not get there with you." But the preamble, that part of the speech, is something I listen to often, not just on MLK Day, because it framed so much for me. What the man was talking about, he looks at, wow, this is really deep. You know, in fact, let me just, anybody that's on the show for the first time, we normally don't do that, and I hope you guys don't mind, but, you know, this is MLK Day, and one thing I do try to push on the show is education. So when I'm playing this, I'm not playing this for you. I'm also playing it for me. It centers me in a lot of things that I'm trying to do, and I'm sure it probably centers you in a lot of things you're trying to do, or how you look at the world. And you know, it's cathartic when you listen to his speech back then, realizing that he was murdered the day afterwards, right after the speech is over, and even more so, the fact that his words speak to the fact that there's a correction that's been brewing. It hasn't happened yet, but he's saying that in all the societies he went through, they all require what? Correction. To be a society that lasts, it requires correction. It requires adaptation. It requires understanding, education, intellect. So when I put him on, I was like, you know, this is interesting. And it brought me to a story, actually. It reminded me of a very painful and shameful story, my own history as a young black man in elementary school, and I'll share that. But before we get into anybody that's coming, I think we have Brother Rob Jocko. How you doing, brother? I'm going to tell everybody, Rob, if you haven't been on the show before, I'm going to tell you how it works. First of all, you're part of the ShOUT Show family, and let me thank you for coming on the show. That's number one. Number two is, when you're on the ShOUT Show family, ShOUT Show, I want you to feel free to share your thoughts, share what you're thinking, give a greeting to anybody who's on the show. You know, this is a very positive show. And I just want to let you know as well, you're part of a very eclectic group. The people who are in the comment section, they're known as the ShOUT Soldiers, the ShOUT Show family, and they come here in a very dedicated group, an eclectic group of thinkers and entrepreneurs and artists and things of that nature. So we appreciate you dropping by. The other part is, I always introduce the stars in the building. So Rob, you're going to be a star in the building. If you're still here, I'm going to shout you out if you don't mind. First up, I want to give a shout out to Sultana Whitfield, consultant producer extraordinaire, making sure that this program is correct and we're doing the right things to make sure that people are getting the correct information and that we are also in the business of correction. We want to get better. We want to get better with you. So please, if you have any suggestions, don't hesitate. I have thick skin. Say what you're thinking. If you're thinking some guests, put it in there. Sultana has the email address we need to put up there later in the show. We'll give a shout out to Sister Ree, who's also taking care of her oldest sister in Michigan. I pray for both of them that you and Auntie are doing well, that your sister and Auntie are doing well, and please let them know that we are thinking of them and we have in our prayers, and we hope for a complete and robust recovery. May Allah give them shifa. Rob Jockel, welcome to the show, brother. Thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate it. I'm glad you appreciate that piece from King. I'm going to get a little bit into it if you don't mind, but thank you for coming on the show, brother. And we hope to see you as a regular. My brother, Johnny L. Thomas. Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thanks for coming on the show. Good conversation we were having before the show. Sister Rabina, I know you have some thoughts on what's been played. I know you're going to. She's our unofficial research director. She brings a lot of information, some things I don't think about, and some of them actually made it onto the show. So big ups to sister. I appreciate you. And my sister Sultana, you know I'm waiting for the rest of that greeting. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Give it to me. I want the peace. I want the mercy. I want the blessings. I told you I want the peace, mercy, and blessings. So hook me up now. Hook me up. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, because I'm going to hook you up anyway because, we're family. Thank you for coming all the way from New Jersey. Sister Aika also coming from Indonesia, outside of Jakarta. Big prayers for people out there. They had an earthquake on the Richter scale. I think it was a 6.3, 6.5. They're dealing with a lot of destroyed buildings and things like that. People trapped under the rubble. Make sure we make the dua for those as well. They had the plane crash, so we're feeling for you. We're feeling for you. All talk all the way from Toronto. Man, we appreciate you. Thank you again for coming on the show. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope you like that piece that we did. Sister Santiago, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Driving to Tennessee. Thank you so much. We're going to try and educate. Sister Santiago is a soldier out in the Dallas area. We hope that your health has improved and it's sustained. And be careful out there driving. Sorry, my allergies are acting up all of a sudden. What you got for me, Sister Rabina? Lots of Americans turns against MLK after the Beyond Vietnam, a time to break silent speech. Yes, he exposed it. Yeah, he did. And, it's a classic thing. I wish I had queued it up, but he gives the economics of war. In this speech, Beyond Vietnam, he gives the economics of war, and I thought that it was a total takedown in what was essentially a war state. You had the Korean War, you had the Vietnamese War, you had World War II. You had these little wars, and he frames them as economies. So maybe some other time we're going to talk about that, because we're going to have to look at that here in the United States, because there's also an economy that we're going to have to deal with in terms of domestic terrorism, how they are going to go about addressing domestic terrorism in the United States. Because there's always been, it's sort of like the new virus. It's like the new coronavirus, which is domestic violence. But I'm not going to get into that today. I'm here to celebrate my main man. Okay. Thank you. All right, thank you. Thank you, Sister Santiago. Yes, we all need a great day. You be careful on that road. And Sister Sultana, you're funny now. I appreciate you doing that for me. And I need it. You don't know, I need it. So let me gear down a little bit. And let me talk about MLK. MLK was assassinated in 1968. I was born in 1966. I have vague memories, actually, of MLK being assassinated at a very young age, because you pick up the vibrations of your parents when you're young, particularly young. And I remember my father wailing. I remember my mother crying, to the point where when you get picked up as a baby, they're not just picking you, they are crushing you because they don't want to lose you. They don't want to lose you. You know, that whatever that blessing, however they do that. And I would imagine back in '68 that a lot of black parents uh, held on tight to their children, held on tight to their husbands and their wives. I imagine that, you know, I was not, you know, like I said, I was born, but I wasn't fully cognizant. But there was always that feel, and you can see it. There were the riots that happened following his assassination. But you know what the thing though about King in that particular space, I thought it was beautiful that King, as a black man, situated himself and black existence and all these other cultures, he situates them as all being valuable. And that piece where he says, I would ask the Almighty, that idea of God consciousness in the worst of situations, in the worst of scenarios. The idea of God consciousness means that as much as I see, as much as I want, it's still going to be tied into the will of the Creator. Now, this is not to get on some religious thing. This is very, very important because that generosity, that's a generosity and a trust at the same time. Of Martin Luther King frames, brothers and sisters, frames protest all the way up to what we're doing right now. It frames liberation talk all the way up to what we're doing right now. You see, because at the time King is doing this, you don't have the protections that you have now. You don't have the laws that you have now. You don't have the access to jurisprudence. You don't have those things. You know, the idea of right, which I thought is extraordinary when you hear this thing, and go back and listen to it yourselves. Go back, because he builds this whole thing. And he fashions life in service. He fashions the idea of life in service. And so for anybody that's saying, Allah made me funny, you know, we cheated. We took that. That was King talking, but that was also an Islamic model of how you frame life in service. And the United States at that point in time had not seen it. They hadn't seen life in service. They saw loss of life in service. That's, you know, going to wars and things like that. They saw loss of wealth. You know, we talked about the Great Crash, the Great Depression. He talked about all these things, but life in service, having a purpose-driven life to help others, to fight imperfection, to fight oppression, to fight all these things is a novelty, brothers and sisters. To create an organizational structure is a novelty, brothers and sisters. And I say it's a novelty, but it's also a miracle. We got Adam right here. What's going on, brother? There you go, brother. I didn't play that because if I played it, YouTube would probably cut off my broadcast like they did with the Eddie Murphy thing. But to understand King, let me tell a story. I had a teacher in the 6th grade. Some of you know her. Her name was Miss Alveda Jones. And Miss Alveda Jones, I always say that in the 6th grade, I thought Miss Alveda Jones was the meanest black woman God had ever put on earth. Nobody wanted to be in her class. She was an old school black teacher from the old black teacher college. And when she came in the classroom, she taught with a sense of urgency. She wanted everybody to know that education is your key for whatever you wanted to do. And it was doing busing, you know, it was doing busing back then. And so I'm dating myself, but it was doing busing back then. And it was the worst time for me because I didn't take the bus. I had to walk to school with all these white kids that didn't like me. And then I had to run home after fighting them. But that's a whole nother story. There was a contest at the school. And it was a Martin Luther King contest, part of Black history. And we had to come up with a little paper And the idea is that you win a little prize, you know. And so my homie Rick and I, we conspired. I'm gonna write because I thought I was a little decent writer back then. And I wrote this whole elaborate thing about Martin Luther King and his dream and all that type of stuff. And here's the deal, brothers and sisters. It was a contest. I won the contest. I won the contest. It was the best paper that was written. But here's the deal. It was the best paper for the contest. But for reality, truth, and pride as a black man, black excellence, it was the worst paper. It was lame as hell. I wrote that paper for white people to make them happy. I wrote that paper for the people in the school that didn't like me. Almost so that they would like me a little bit and pat me on. And of course I get a couple little prize and everything. And I won the prize for the paper. And I came to class that next day with Miss Jones. And you would think that Miss Jones will understand who she was in the presence of. A person who wrote a paper, a winning paper, about Martin Luther King. She paid me no attention. None. She paid me no attention. She didn't pay me attention that day. The next day, I felt out of pocket. She's like, do you have a problem? I said, yeah. She said, what's the problem? I literally said, Miss Jones, I don't know what's going on, but you're not being mean to me today. What's up? And then I told her, I said, I want a paper. I won a prize for a paper. And she said, did you? I said, yeah. I said, did you read the paper? She said, yeah. I said, well, what's the problem? She said, why in God's green earth would you lie on this man to these white people? She said, why on God's green earth would you lie on this man to these black kids in this class? She said, you framed this man that he was a dreamer. And I said, I don't understand. She said, he was not a dreamer. Dreamers stay in one place. She said, doers occupy real estate. Doers produce content. She said, you wrote a paper that made it seem like this man was a saint. She said he wasn't a saint. He never said he was a saint. We never thought he was a saint. She said we knew this man from his character and how he addressed people. And she said, you didn't write anything in this paper about how he moved the hearts of people. And I literally took the paper and balled it up. And I was distraught because she was correct. I did. I sold out one of our icons. And I asked her, how can I make it up? She said, first of all, give the prize back. Don't accept money for inferior intellect and don't accept money for inferior explanation. She said, you take or you build on excellence. People value excellence. And so I gave the paper back. I gave the money back for the little prize, whatever. And I never told my mom that I actually won the prize. I never told my mom I won the prize. And what I did was I rewrote the paper. And I rewrote the paper based on the video that you saw today. That this was a man of vision. You see, people can have vision about themselves, but you can rarely have vision about large swaths of people. Understanding their needs. So when a person gives a speech like that, we talked about the undulations and going to all these different aspects of society. He's talking about the human condition, the human narrative. And then in the most brilliant of things, he situates himself at the most problematic part of it and says, let me be of service. Let me engage whatever you give me in terms of a gift of a blessing for these people. And the thing is, we really don't see that. I messed around and said in that paper that Martin Luther King was a politician. And I thought Miss Jones would, she looked at me like I had 4 heads and 3 backs. Because you see, brothers and sisters, every once in a while, down the road, doesn't matter how crazy it is or how chaotic it is, every once in a while, there's a little bit of truth that comes down the road and it brings clarity as a homie. It brings truth as a homeboy. It brings reality as a clique. And people are able to see through things. The speech that Sister Robina referred to, I always said they knew they had to kill him then. And this speech right here, he doesn't live another day after this, but this speech right here talks about purpose. It talks about purpose. It talks about knowing your purposefulness. It talks about when you know your time is up. When you know that the world around you, there's a great tafsir about Surah Asr. And it says, by the token of time, truly man is in loss, except those that have faith, perform righteous deeds, and join together in mutual teaching of truth, patience, and constancy. The tafsir for that is loss. And it says, men are in loss, but they're going to be people that practice things, brothers and sisters, truth, patience, and constancy, that move them away from the loss. And King, in a way, is saying something that I think is deep and profound. What he's saying is, and mark this down because I've heard this, Imam say this, but I heard Dick Gregory say this. He said, there are people who come in a time that are so advanced with their thoughts and their sincerity and their religious devotion, brothers and sisters, that the world looks at them like they're alien. That the world looks like them, that they're a threat. That the world looks like them, that you can't be a part of this world. Therefore, you must be removed. Therefore, they couldn't put him in jail. He had been in jail. They had to kill him, remove him from the face of his earth, but they couldn't move him from our conscience. And what I'm saying is the bravery that he says in his speech, catch it. The bravery that he says in his speech, brothers and sisters, is the fact that he knows the people around him who love him the most may not understand what he's saying. Because sometimes a great idea, a great intention, a great man, a great woman, a great idea, brothers and sisters, will never catch hold because the people around those same things are not ready. You know, the scope of all our great prophets, all our great leaders, I mean, even our sports figures, your Muhammad Ali's. We just talked about Muhammad Ali. You know, the thing about them is that they stepped out in a way to remind us, one, scare us, two, remind us that we weren't ready. They didn't do things when they were comfortable. You know, this is the only time, and you listen to the speech, this is one of the rare times you're going to see somebody give their own eulogy. Do you hear what I said? Give their own eulogy, letting you know that the game is over, letting you know I can't run this race with you anymore, letting you know as much as I want to be here for you, I have to go. And us being able to understand why that's so important, why it's so important, why are we overlooking these things? We're talking about the weirdness of an inauguration. Look at the inauguration. A simple transfer of power. They can't even transfer power correctly. Yes. I'll have to check it out. I think I have read it. I have to refresh myself. Thank you, Sister Sultana. But that idea is amazing. The thing that's even more amazing that you probably won't read it. You know, it's not discussed enough. But there was a man before Martin Luther King. He preceded Martin Luther King. He's in obscurity. You know, people don't hear about him. His name is Dr. Vernon Johns. And he was a pastor at the church Martin Luther King was pastor at. He pastored before Martin Luther King at that church. And he let Martin Luther King know I did these things without the benefit of a religious organization, popular culture. You know, he got chased out of every ministerial position he was given, but they didn't kill him. Martin Luther King ran the race. And what he also subtly reminds us is that all of us are still running the race. And while that race may not be popular, it may be tiring, it still has to be run. And the thing that's ensuring is that we may find ourselves in a position whereby we feel uncomfortable because we make other people feel uncomfortable. And it's not anything we're doing. You're the person all of a sudden that's bringing the truth. You're the person that's bringing the reality. You're the person that has the great idea, the great intention, the great concept. However, you find yourself in a situation scenario where the people around you are not ready. Are not ready. And that, brothers and sisters, is why I love this thing. Because Martin Luther King says, you must be ready. You must be ready. That's it for the shout out show. Happy MLK, everybody. Thank you so much. For anybody that had a problem with the long, I had to let the speech run, brothers and sisters. Literally, I'm not even gonna lie to you. I let it run. I had to dry my eyes. Because it's almost all over again when you're 2 years old. You feel like somebody's touched your heart, but they're not there anymore. And it was a reminder of that. So I appreciate everybody. And we'll be back tomorrow, inshallah. Have a great MLK Day. In fact, make it a great MLK Day. Do some service, even if it's just calling somebody, make sure they're all right, or a prayer for them or something like that. But, make it that. Okay, brothers and sisters, let's just make it that. All right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm Preacher Moss. This is the Shout Out Show. Happy MLK.
Hey everybody, this is your brother Preacher Moss. Listen, I hope that you enjoyed your shout out show experience. We'll be back with the next show, the next shout out show. A simple ask before you go, please help your brother out. Click that subscribe button, click that notify button, and I'll see you again on this side of the microphone. You probably wonder what that smell is. That's me. I smell good. And the reason I smell good is because I use oils from Tarif Attar. So I'm not saying you can't smell good. I'm not even saying you stink. I'm saying you have the opportunity to smell exquisite. Check out tarifattar.com for some of the best oils and scents in town.